Back now with perhaps the most closely watched governor's race in the country. In Georgia, with the latest poll showing Democrat Stacey Abrams trailing GOP incumbent Brian Kemp. Abrams is looking to close the gap by tapping into hundreds of thousands of new voters, especially in rural Georgia. She spoke with Blaine Alexander for our series, Power of the Vote.
How important is the state of Georgia?
Georgia is essential. Georgia is often a lead on what's going to happen across the country.
That became abundantly clear in 2020. It was Georgia that flipped blue for President Biden, Georgia that changed control of the U.S. Senate, and a key factor in it all, Stacey Abrams.
We found that there were 800,000 people of color who were not registered to vote in Georgia who were eligible. We knocked on their doors and we asked them, why aren't you registered? Why aren't you voting?
What did they tell you?
They said because they didn't trust government, because no one had ever asked, and because they felt overlooked.
Now Abrams is looking to those same voters to help secure her own historic win.
I'm running to become governor of Georgia. If I'm successful, or when I am successful, I will be the first black woman in American history to do so.
Abrams is in a rematch against Republican Governor Brian Kemp, who 4 years ago defeated her by less than 55,000 votes.
We have a great opportunity here in our state. But you know, we are beating the bushes every single day, reminding people the differences and where we would be now, where we would have been if Stacey Abrams was your governor.
It's a tight race, though most polls show Kemp consistently ahead. But a lot has changed since they last met in 2018. Georgia now has 1.6 million newly registered voters, meaning more than 20% of the current electorate was not registered to vote in the last governor's race.
We want to harness those votes, but we don't take those votes for granted.
It means going to places typically considered Republican strongholds, like rural Georgia.
Are there votes to be won there?
Absolutely. If we can increase the vote share in those communities, we absolutely will see a change in the outcome of the election.
Find everything all right?
About 3 hours south of Atlanta, in Valdosta, Georgia, Glenn Stiegel.
Number one issue in this race?
In this race, I think you have to have a candidate who simply understands what we face on a day-to-day basis. We've got to be able to hire qualified candidates. That stems back to education.
He says he will vote, but convincing some family and friends to turn out, especially those who are not as enthusiastic as they were in 2020, is a struggle.
What do you say to that voter who then raises the question of, why should I go out and do this again?
That voting is not magic. Voting is medicine. It's less an enthusiasm gap than a trust gap. And we need folks to understand that for this race, it's not about what happens in Washington, it's what happens in Atlanta.
Blaine Alexander, NBC News, Atlanta.